So, hey guys, I just wanted to give you a better version of the race PowerPoint. I was outside before, my dog was sick. It was just, and I realized that there's certain instances where you can't hear me. So, this is just a clearer version of that PowerPoint. So, I'm going to share my screen. And again, I will post this. I think I didn't the last time, but I will post it for you. Okay, so we're talking about race as a social construct. When you think about social construct, think of the word construct, and so think of construction. So race as a social construct just means that race is something that was created, built by a particular society to uphold a particular racial order. So we tend to think of race as being biological, but that is not the case. Race is socially constructed. So things this PowerPoint will attempt to answer: what is race? Is race biological? What are racial stereotypes? How do we learn race? And what is racism? So again, races, and this is from Omi and Why Not, Racial Formations in the United States. You'll probably run into them again at some point in your college career. So what Omi and Why Not say is that it's preeminently a socio-historical concept. So that means, again, that race is created by a particular society at a particular historical moment, right? So it's something that we create. So what this means is that race and how we understand race is it can be in flux. It can change over time in between different societies. All right, so again, we tend to understand race as biological. So what that means is that we see these physical markers of difference, hair, skin color, eye shape, as pointing to biological and innate differences, right? So if you are Black, you must be this. If you are white, you must be this. If you are Asian, you must be this. If you are Latino, you must be this. So we're taking these physical markers of difference and we're saying, because you look this way, biologically, you must be that or this. That's not true. Physical markers of difference are simply that. They are superficial and they are only physical markers of difference. Another way to explain this is that you can have more in common with someone outside of your race genetically than you do with someone in your race. So for example, as a Black woman, I can have more in common genetically with someone who's white or someone who's Asian or someone who's Latino, which is a really good argument for race not being biological. All right, so society makes this up, and society, then that means that society, the society we're born into, teaches us race, right? So we learn the rules of race just like we learn the rules and roles of gender, right? And these things are stereotypes, right? They're not innately true for all races. Just if we go back to gender, and gender, it would be the rules or roles assigned to people based on their biological sex. Historically and traditionally, that's how we've understood gender. However, because gender is also a social construct, you can see that gender is in flux now. We don't necessarily that how we understand gender is changing and broadening. Race works the same way. So some gender stereotypes are men are strong and aggressive and smart, and women are illogical and emotional, right? Those are stereotypes. Racial stereotypes would be that all Black people are fill in the blank, all white people are fill in the blank, all Asians are fill in the blank, all Latinos are fill in the blank. And if you grow up in a racialized society, you know what these stereotypes are, because they're taught to you. So racial stereotypes, similar to gender stereotypes, again, are the rules and roles assigned to each race in a particular society. Okay, so why? Why do we do this? And so racial stereotypes, similar to gender stereotypes, came about and were created to ensure that some groups had power and other groups didn't. So in terms of gender ensure, or gender roles ensure and uphold men having power and women being powerless, which makes sense because historically men have been in power in Western culture. Racial stereotypes were created to uphold whites being in power and other races being powerless, which again makes sense because historically whites have been in power in Western culture. So whoever has the most power gets to make up the rules, and those rules that are made up are usually made up to benefit that specific group. So racial stereotypes matter. They also matter because they serve to justify how racial groups are treated, right? So they justify the treatment of racial groups and also the position of racial groups within that society. So for example, if all Black people are stereotyped as criminals, then it makes sense that there are more Blacks in jail, right? Because the stereotype justifies the treatment. So, and it justifies the position, and it justifies who has access to what and who can do what and who can live where, right? That's what the stereotypes do. The stereotype is never just a stereotype. I'm just checking my time to make sure I'm cool here. So how is race taught? It's pretty much taught everywhere, right? So you get it from your family, like this is who you can play with, this is who you should talk to, this is who you should marry, this is who you should never marry. These are safe neighborhoods, these are dangerous neighborhoods. You get it from your peers, your neighborhoods, it's in our religion, it's in our history, it's in our social norms, it's in our social economic class. Literally, it's everywhere. And a lot of times we don't realize we're being taught these stereotypes. We believe these stereotypes to actually be true when they're not. They're just stereotypes that we've been taught and told over and over and over again. And so we all start to believe them. So race is contextual. I've already said this, but race can look different in different places and different times. And here are some examples of this. So United Kingdom, many non-whites identify as Black to consolidate political power. In Brazil, there are multiple categories of race. In America, we have like 4 or 5. The other thing is that racism is a modern idea. So it didn't come about until the 1500s when Europeans en masse first started encountering, exploiting, conquering new people in new places. So race was created, and particularly racism was created in order to justify that conquering. So if these people, because of their race, are inherently inferior, inherently inhuman, then therefore it's okay for me to do these awful things to them. Before this, in Europe, before the 1500s, race was used to talk about ethnicity or nationality. So the Irish were a race, the British were a race, and so on. So race is a social construct. You want to, if you did, like, this is how academics understand it. So you want to make sure you take this from this PowerPoint. It's created by society. It's not biological. It's created to uphold a racial hierarchy where one racial group is at the top and other groups are at the bottom. And that race and racial stereotypes always justify how racial groups are viewed, treated, and their position in that society. So racism, a nice working definition from dictionary.com, is the belief that all members of each race possess characteristics or abilities specific to that race. And again, that's that understanding of race is biological, especially so as to distinguish it as inferior or superior to another race or races. So we also want to talk about how racism is institutionalized. So we generally tend to think about racism like like this individual interaction. Someone said this horrible thing, or someone did this horrible thing, or someone made me uncomfortable. But when you think about racism, because a society, a particular society creates it, that means it's kind of everywhere. Like if we go back to that slide about how it's taught. So it's in all of our political systems and all of our institutions. So when people say racism is systemic, that's what they mean. So it's not only individual. And I think when we talk about racism on the individual level, we miss the point. It's systemic, it's societal. We want to figure out how can we create a society where everyone has equal opportunity and equal access and where no one is racist. Like that's the larger question. How do we change this system, this structure? And so that means it exists everywhere. Laws, schools, policies, healthcare, it literally is everywhere. All right, so I hope this is a little bit better. Like race and racism it's hard to do over Zoom because, everything's hard over Zoom. But I will post a video for extra credit on this topic next week because I think you'll need it again. And I'll also post a few videos on gender um, because you're going to need it moving forward. I think your last essay is about how our identities impact us, and this essay for your midterm is asking the same thing. So but once we have an understanding of race and race as being systemic and race as being like this, and racism rather as being this wall that people hit, how does this impact kids? In the essay, they're talking about Latino kids, right, who believe that, you know, I can do whatever I choose to if I work hard enough. They believe in that kind of hard work equals success. But then they run into this wall of systemic racism and find that that's not true, or not always true, or it's true, but what might that do to them? So, is it a good thing for them to believe wholeheartedly in this idea that if I work hard enough, I can be successful, and not really come to terms with this idea of systemic racism? That's what the article is asking you to explore. All right, so I'm going to end this. I'm also going to post for the second essay. You actually need a works cited page, so I'm going to post that along with this video. Okay, take care.